Why does Salmon Run look and feel the way that it does? And how much has the Grizzco brand evolved between the two games? Well, I got curious, and decided to analyze all the little details that make up the stages, branding, manuals, you name it. And just you wait, by the end of this video, you'll not only understand the evolution of Grizzco's branding, but also what makes Salmon Run feel like the shady job that it is. So let's start with the stage design. The new stages maintain a lot of the older elements, like the large statues of food and the many pieces of signage. What I find the most interesting though, are these painted designs all over the map. Sure, they were seen in the previous game as well, but I think it's an important enough aspect of the stage to explore a little bit further. The designs sort of remind me of the designs that you would see on Aztec paintings, and they share a lot of the same thought process in conveying details with very few shapes. For example, the fins on this fish use as few indents as possible, and the way they're placed balances the design in its entirety. Funny enough, the sharp and bold shapes also remind me of wood carvings, like what the Grizz statue was made out of. It's incredible how everything so far has felt very connected. Most of these designs loosely represent something else in this mode, like this one is likely a stinger, and this one is likely a steel eel. It's very cool to see these drawn in a more personalized way. Which does bring up the question, who actually made these? I think it would make the most sense if it was the salmonoids themselves painting these, but then again, this design exists. It's straight up a bear eating a salmon, hence the name Salmon Run. Maybe the explanation is as simple as the salmonoids being aware of who was behind all of this since the very beginning. One more thing on these designs is the constant use of the color teal. The trail that all the salmonoids leave behind is a very similar color, leaning a bit more towards green. And funny enough, the Grizzco brand has adopted green as part of its brand colors, which by the way is an analogous color palette on the color wheel. These colors are showcased the most harmoniously in the victory screen. Interestingly, there is one familiar design here that is also in the employee handbook and in some of the UI. And do you know where else this design is from? Well, it's primarily in Wahoo World. And do you remember the only stage that was confirmed to have a Salmon Run version of it in the Splatoon 3 Direct? It's also Wahoo World. Splatoon being the incredibly fleshed out game that it is, could it be possible that Grizzco is somehow affiliated with Wahoo World in some way? I'm very interested in seeing how much information we get about that in the art book. The victory screen gives us a good look of what makes up the Grizzco brand. For example, there's a lot of neon signs being used, which Grizzco has used since Splatoon 2. And a lot of the other designs are reused from Splatoon 2 as well, like this cool fish design with the signature on it can also be seen on the old sign. The fact that a lot of the designs and elements remained unchanged while moving buildings, I think is a great way to subtly convey Mr. Grizz's obsession with saving money. He's always discussing pay and even mentions helicopter fuel being expensive after beating Kohozuna. While we're on the topic of dialogue, by the way, I really like how he talks like a more established businessman in this game. I do miss his snarky attitude from the previous game, but Mr. Grizz seems to have adopted a new language when talking to his employees. He takes himself and his upgraded brand very seriously now. And speaking of Mr. Grizz employees, I want to take a moment to talk about the employee handbook, specifically how the graphic design has improved. In Splatoon 2, the handbook uses a default-looking sans serif font. If you don't know what a sans serif font is, it's basically any font that doesn't have those flag things sticking out. Those things are called serifs, and sans means without, so a sans serif font is a font that is without serifs, like Helvetica or Arial. But why is that important? Because the font used in the Splatoon 3 employee handbook is the Splatoon font. It's still a sans serif font, but it showcases how the brand has been able to quickly adapt into Inkling society. The old handbook has a few graphic design errors, the main one being the use of widows. A widow is when the last line of a body of text only has one word by itself. This is considered unprofessional in design. As far as the developers and designers go, whoever designed the handbook for Splatoon 2 knew exactly what they were doing, which is why these mistakes were integrated here on purpose. In the Splatoon 3 handbook, there are 0 widows. Well, technically there's 2 in the Salmonoid field guide, but the type as a whole is treated with so much more care in this one. I apologize for using so much graphic design jargon, by the way, but I hope my quick explanations get us all on the same page. Okay, back to Splatoon 2. This page with the pyramid, as dumb as it sounds, made me want to make this video in its entirety. The text in the middle is forcefully fit into the middle of the pyramid, with the type almost touching both the bottom and the top line. I love that they did that. It really feels unprofessional, and like someone just made the handbook very quickly. And of course, in Splatoon 3, the type on the pyramid has been fixed. There's a lot better decision making with the type spacing. One thing I do miss from the old handbook are the little scribble drawings on the corner of the pages. They added so much personality and emphasized the low budget again, basically telling the player that all the workers share the same handbook. Beyond the design just being more professionally presented, there's a ton of great details that show off the increased budget as well. For example, the outfits are now way better suited for the job. They're based on a firefighter's uniform. I think the upgrade looks really cool. I didn't notice this at first, but the uniforms have an antenna that lights up when it's time to head back to the helicopter. And this is a great time to talk about how the new office is structured. The corner of the room has a locker where you can change outfits, and there's a boot rack right next to it. A lot of the same mess from the old office is seen here too, like these cans with the fishes on them, and the many hazard signs are here too. The office is an organized mess, and I love it. I really like the little office setup they have now. Everything just seems a bit more organized. Fun fact, by the way, you can buy the umbrella from the shelf in Hotlantis. Well, I thought that was kinda cool. The washing machine being next to the lockers is a good sign that they clean the uniforms too. And on the topic of the Grizzco building, let's take a look at it from the outside. It is a huge step up from the previous game. The building is more out in the open, and not hiding in an obscure corner of the plaza like before. From the outside, it really looks like a legit small business. I really like how you can still hear the Happy Little Workers song as you enter the building. The song sounding so strange and almost improvisational at times really gets you into the headspace of Grizzco being a shady business. The music in Salmon Run is very contrasting from the music in the rest of the game. That contrast is what really drives the feeling of, I probably shouldn't be here, but the money though. The advertising really is that good, if it gets so many returning employees, and they didn't even need to change their printed ad between the two games. I think this is a great time to mention the very first official advertisement for Grizzco, the VHS commercial. This ad is very low budget, using default templates, default fonts, bad framing, and vague wording. It's great! No, really, it is. It perfectly demonstrates how Mr. Grizz started this monster of a business from basically nothing. Now he's been endorsed from the Splatcast in both games, and has been thriving since. Grizzco didn't generate intrigue from good pay alone. He also used great advertising and developed a trustworthy brand in the process. This is what makes Grizzco as a brand so special. And by extension, this is what makes the Salmon Run mode feel so special. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe. And here's a playlist of other Splatoon analysis videos I've done with my friend Jack, if that interests you.